Hello friends, my name is Chris, and welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into a true crime case that seems straight out of a psychological thriller. Imagine a small, quiet town where everyone knows each other, a place where crime is almost unheard of. Now, imagine that town becoming the center of one of the most twisted and bizarre crime stories you've ever heard. That's exactly what happened in the spring of 2008 in Budgeree, Australia. But before we get into the details, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on any of our gripping true crime stories. On the morning of March 4, 2008, 22-year-old Julian Buchwald and his 17-year-old girlfriend, Carolyn were preparing for what seemed like a normal day. They planned a picnic in the vast bushland owned by Julian's family, a common activity for the young couple. They were serious about their relationship, even discussing marriage, though Carolyn, still in school, wanted to wait. Julian picked up Carolyn from her home in Churchill, a small town about 20 minutes from Budgeree. They headed to his family's property to gather supplies for their picnic before driving to a picturesque spot near a waterfall. But what started as a peaceful outing quickly turned into a nightmare. As they drove, Julian spotted an animal carcass by the road. Curious, he pulled over to check it out, leaving Carolyn in the car. But when Julian didn't return after several minutes, Carolyn began to worry. Then, in a moment that would terrify anyone, she saw a man dressed in black, wearing gloves and a balaclava, rushing toward her. Before she could react, the man pulled her from the car, bound her with duct tape, and threw her into the back seat. She was driven to a remote, wooded area, stripped of her clothes, and left tied up on the ground. As she lay there, she heard the chilling sound of digging nearby, believing she was moments away from death. Meanwhile, Julian's parents grew concerned when the couple didn't return by 3 p.m. Their worry intensified as hours passed with no sign of them. Julian's mother decided to search the property and found something that sent chills down her spine, a note wedged in a fence, full of threats and expletives. The note was terrifying, claiming that Julian and Carolyn had been taken by a group that would kill them if the family contacted the police. The police were called anyway, and a massive search began, focusing on the 1,200-acre Buchwald property. The terrain was harsh, making the search extremely difficult. As the investigation progressed, police learned that Carolyn's family had received a similar threatening note just days before the couple disappeared. The notes were linked to a cult known as the Order of Nine Angles, a group that advocated violence, crime, and even human sacrifice. With this information, the case took on a sinister tone. Was this couple targeted by a dangerous cult? After 6 agonizing days, a miracle happened. Carolyn and Julian were found alive, emerging from the wilderness near Alpine National Park, hundreds of miles from where they had disappeared. They were picked up by a farmer who immediately notified authorities. The couple was physically exhausted, sunburned, and covered in cuts and bruises. But they were alive. When questioned, Carolyn described her horrifying experience, how she had prayed while lying helpless, believing she was about to be killed, only to hear Julian's voice calling out to her. Julian had managed to free himself using a knife left by the attacker and then freed Carolyn. Together, they fled, wandering the wilderness in fear, trying to find safety. As police began piecing together the story, they discovered some strange inconsistencies in Julian's account. There were doubts about his injuries, and forensic evidence recovered at the scene pointed to something even more disturbing. All the items found at the crime scene belonged to Julian. Under pressure, Julian eventually confessed to staging the entire kidnapping. He had meticulously planned the abduction, sending the threatening notes, disguising himself as the attacker, and dragging Carolyn into a nightmare, all for a deeply disturbing reason. Julian had wanted to marry Carolyn right away and consummate their relationship, but she wanted to wait. In his twisted mind, he believed that by putting them in a life-or-death situation, he could pressure Carolyn into sleeping with him. He even manipulated their escapes to keep them lost, hoping she would relent. But Carolyn remained steadfast in her faith and principles, refusing his advances. Realizing his plan had failed, Julian eventually led them out of the forest, pretending they had finally found their way to safety. Julian was arrested and charged with kidnapping and making a false report. He was convicted in 2009 but was granted bail before sentencing. In a bizarre twist, Julian attempted to flee the country using a fake passport, trying to pass himself off as Indian by dyeing his hair and darkening his skin. His plan failed, and he was caught in Singapore, eventually returning to Australia to serve his sentence. In 2016, Julian was deported to Germany, where he was born, but had no real connections. His life, once full of potential, was destroyed by his own actions. Carolyn, on the other hand, moved on, showing incredible resilience after enduring such a traumatic ordeal. This case is a haunting reminder of how trust can be shattered and how deeply some people can be consumed by their own desires. What started as a simple picnic turned into a harrowing ordeal for Carolyn, orchestrated by someone she loved and trusted. But what do you think? How does a case like this happen in a place as quiet as Budgeree? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this video compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay updated with more true crime stories.